Good morning, everyone. This is going to be a continuation of the oil pressure relief valve video I've done in the past. In those videos, I took this dowel here, polished it up, put it back in, and I have had reasonable success with that. One problem though, it seems like in time the issue just comes back, the dowel gets scarred up. I think the bore gets scuffed up worse than it was before. So I've tried to go back to this 2-ball bearing idea. The Polaris tech had turned me on to using 1-ball bearing in the past with a spring and then put the piston in on top. But I tried this 2-ball bearing mod a while back and I was not sure about how successful it was because I still had lower oil pressure idle. And through some discussion on sidebysidenation.com, we've kind of went back to there's a guy on there that was using this same setup again with success, and I thought I'll try it in one of these other Rangers I'm having issues with that blew oil filter up here last week because of the high oil pressure. Put those two in, followed by the spring and then the plug, and it's been working great. And I haven't had time to check oil pressure on it, but on my machine I'm having similar problems. I blew an oil filter up on mine recently, lost half the oil, but luckily didn't lose the engine. And I'm going to go ahead and do this mod on it and see how things go. Before we do that, I've got the oil pressure gauge hooked up. Those of you that haven't done that before, I'm going to zoom in right there. There's a plug there. You remove that plug and it is hard to get to. If I get down here lower, possibly you can see in there, you see how that is not a direct shot? I had to notch the cover. Now I didn't notch past where the seal is, but I got so sick and tired of fighting that I just notched it with a deburring tool so I could get my oil pressure gauge on there a little easier without a 90. If you've never seen a deburring bit, let me zoom out. There you go, it's on a die grinder. They call that a carbide deburring bit. Works great for a lot of things. You can even put it on a drill. So, I've got the oil pressure gauge on. I've warmed the engine up. And we're going to just get a baseline test, even though I know this oil pressure relief valve is not working correctly now. You're going to see the pressure jump around a lot, and that's that valve sticking as it runs. So we'll get a couple pressures here and go from there. I would say about 30 pounds idle with hot oil, and probably 40 to 50 pounds at higher RPMs. So we're going to go with that. I'm going to put these 2-ball bearings in. For those of you that don't know where we're going here, how we're going to get to this relief valve, I'm going to see if I can get some eyes on it here for you. Possibly. Some light would be good. Right there, that plug, you remove it, and you're going to need a little tool, a little magnetic tool. I'll show you. Here's mine. I took a old telescoping magnetic pen deal and broke it off, and that works real good. You got to go in there one-handed, but you can get it out. The only other way to get at that is you have to remove basically this, the front piece, the ECU, the exhaust elbow, Y-pipe, and the engine mount to get access at that. Only other way to do that is to go in the way I do, through here with one hand. Put a wrench on that, break that plug loose, and you can do the rest with one hand. So we'll resume this in just a second here. Now we have the spring out, the plug out, the spring out. Here's the dowel. We're going to replace this with these, followed by spring, the plug. One thing I wanted to show you about this, if I can get this set up the way I'd like, maybe, is that the length of these two bearings is equivalent to this plug, to this dowel. Let's see if we can take a quick measurement. Measurement on this, if I can, 15.8 millimeters. Don't judge me because I'm using millimeters, because I am an American. But for simplicity's sake, sometimes that's easier. Okay, there's the two ball bearings together. 15.7. Very marginally smaller, but otherwise it is almost exactly the same length. So we should have similar oil pressure, at least on the high end, out of this setup, because we haven't changed our spring length. We haven't preloaded the spring any more than before. So I expect good things here. My only question will be at idle. It always seems like with a ball bearing setup in place of the piston, it seems to bleed off pressure at idle. But I am told and have witnessed that there are machines out there running as little as 2 to 4 pounds of pressure at idle and surviving. The bottom end survives. So I'm not going to say that yours will never blow up or anything like that. I'm not giving any guarantees. All I'm saying is that there are machines out there, and so far as I know, all of the machines at the tech that I talked to that have had this mod done have had no more issues. So aside from possibly having the lifter rattles sometimes on the bottom end or at idle, the lifter rattle you could probably live with, but have not seen any bottom end failures to my knowledge from this setup. So I'm going to put this in, we're going to take some oil pressure readings and kind of go over what we see.